They had called it the Great Banishment. 1,000 years ago, every major species in the Milky Way agreed on one thing: humans were too dangerous to exist among them. They said humanity was violent, unpredictable, and impossible to control. So the Galactic Council forced them out, exiled them to the edge of the galaxy, beyond the spiral arms where no one had ever survived before. Most believed the humans would die out there, forgotten and erased from history. But humans did not die. For generations, they struggled in dark space, fighting hunger, storms, and silence. Their ships broke apart, their colonies froze, but still they survived. And after centuries of silence, the galaxy began to hear whispers again. Rumors of ships made of living metal, fleets moving faster than light, and a banner with a single symbol: the burning Earth. No one believed the stories. Not until the day the humans came back. In the deep void near the Zarin system, a small mining station picked up a signal. It was faint at first, like a ghost on the radio waves. "Unidentified craft approaching," said the officer on duty. "No ID, no registry." The miners didn't care much. They saw ships every day. But when the signal grew stronger, and the scanners failed to read its technology, fear began to spread. Then the ship appeared. It wasn't like anything they had seen before. Smooth silver armor, glowing lines across the hull, and a faint blue fire burning at its core. The captain's voice trembled as he ordered the external cameras on. The ship had no windows, no markings, just one word glowing across its side: Terra. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then a voice came through the comms, deep and calm. "This is Commander Eric Hale of the Human Dominion. You have entered restricted space. Identify yourselves." The miners froze. Human Dominion? That name didn't exist in any galactic database. You said human," the officer stuttered. "Humanity was exiled centuries ago." The voice on the other side didn't answer right away. Then it spoke again. "We were. And we remember." Before anyone could react, the signal cut off, and the massive ship jumped away, faster than light. The miners were left staring at empty space, their systems half-fried from the power surge the ship had released. Within hours, every major government in the galaxy had received the report. Some called it fake. Others called it impossible. But deep inside, they all felt the same chill. Humans were back. Across the galaxy, chaos began. The Zarathi Empire ordered emergency meetings. The Saran Collective increased fleet patrols near the border systems. Even the mighty Galactic Council held secret discussions in their floating citadel. The same species who had once exiled humanity now feared what their return could mean. And in the far reaches of space, aboard the flagship Erebus, Commander Eric Hale watched the stars drift by. He stood silent, hands behind his back, staring at the holographic map of the galaxy. Around him, his crew worked in perfect rhythm. Men and women born in exile, raised in darkness, hardened by centuries of struggle. "Sir," said one officer quietly, "the Council will know we're here now. Should we proceed?" Eric's eyes narrowed. "Yes," he said softly. It's time they remembered who they cast out. The ship's engines roared, and the fleet began to move, hundreds of ships breaking through the black void like a storm. Meanwhile, on the central world of Varela Prime, Counselor Rethar of the Saran Collective sat alone in his chamber, reading the old archives. He found ancient recordings from the day humanity was banished. The faces of humans on the screens were young, defiant, and filled with fire. "You can cast us out," one of them had said back then. "But one day, you will need us." Rethar closed the file and felt a shiver run down his spine. Could it be that day had come? In the deep night of space, near the forgotten border, another signal appeared, this time stronger, clearer. It wasn't a message of peace. It was a declaration. Every screen, every broadcast channel in the outer systems displayed the same line of text. "To the species of the galaxy, your exile ends today. Humanity has returned." On thousands of worlds, people watched in silence. On some planets, fear spread like wildfire. On others, excitement. Stories of old human bravery, of their strength and madness, returned to the minds of many. And somewhere, far from any sun, deep within the cold black, the humans prepared their next move. They had been banished. They had been forgotten. But now, they would remind the galaxy what it meant to face humanity. The Galactic Council was in panic. For the first time in 400 years, every member species attended the emergency meeting on Varela Prime. The chamber was filled with alien voices, some angry, some afraid. Holograms of delegates floated in the air, each one representing a world that once voted to exile humanity. "Impossible!" shouted a tall insectoid from the Kryn Dominion. "Humans cannot survive beyond the galactic rim. That area is pure radiation and chaos." "They can survive anywhere," said Counselor Rethar quietly. "You all know that." The chamber fell silent. Rethar's words hit like a cold wind. Everyone remembered what humans had done before they were banished. Their wars, their speed of invention, their courage and their madness. A hologram flickered on the center platform. It was the image of the strange ship that had appeared near the Zarin system. The data showed impossible readings, energy levels beyond known physics, unknown alloys, and engine designs no one could explain. "This ship," murmured a scientist from the Saran Collective. "It breaks every known rule. If they built an entire fleet like this, then we are doomed," interrupted another delegate. But even as they argued, far away in the outer rim, humanity's fleet was already moving. Commander Eric Hale stood on the bridge of the Erebus, watching the fleet gather around him. Thousands of ships, sleek, dark, and built for war, filled the Black Sea of Stars. They were not made for conquest alone. They were made for survival. "Status report," Eric said. "All ships in position, sir," replied his second officer, a woman named Lyra Dax. "Scanners detect increased council movement near the core worlds." "They're afraid." "As they should be," Eric replied. His tone was calm, but his eyes burned with something deeper, a quiet rage carried through generations. "They left us to die. Now they will listen." On one of the smaller ships, a young pilot stared out the window at the stars. He had been born in exile. He had never seen another alien race before. "Sir," he whispered to his captain, "are they really monsters? The ones who banished us?" The captain smiled sadly. "No, they were just afraid. And fear makes anyone cruel." Back in the council chamber, the arguments grew louder. "We must strike first," shouted one of the warlords. "We cannot let them regroup." "Strike first." Rethar turned to face him. "You still don't understand humanity. The moment you strike, you give them what they want, a reason." The lights suddenly dimmed. Every screen in the chamber blinked once, twice, then turned black. For a second, the galaxy itself seemed to hold its breath. Then a new image appeared. Commander Eric Hale. He stood tall in his dark uniform, his eyes sharp, his voice calm. "Council members," he said, his face broadcast across every world in the known galaxy. "Centuries ago, you banished us to die. You called us dangerous. You were right." Gasps filled the chamber. "But you made us stronger. You made us united. In the cold, in the darkness, we built something greater than your empires. We built the human dominion." He paused, his gaze like fire. "We come not to destroy, but to remind you, the galaxy does not belong to those who fear. It belongs to those who fight." The transmission ended. Silence filled every corner of the chamber. Then, as if on cue, reports started flooding in. Council fleets disappearing near the border, communication lines cut, stations vanishing into static. It wasn't open war, but it was a warning. Humanity was everywhere and nowhere at once. On Varela Prime, Counselor Rethar stared at the blank screen. "He doesn't want war," he whispered. "He wants fear." Meanwhile, in the command center of the Erebus, Lyra approached Eric. "The Council has seen your message. What are your orders now?" Eric looked at the holographic map of the galaxy, glowing blue in front of him. Slowly, he pointed toward the center, toward Varela Prime itself. "We go home." As the order echoed across the fleet, engines flared alive. The void around them shivered with light as the ships prepared for the jump. In the darkness of the bridge, Eric whispered to himself, almost too softly for anyone to hear, "Let them remember why they feared us." Then the fleet vanished into hyperspace. Far across the galaxy, every sensor, every radar, every watchtower went dark for 10 seconds. When they came back online, humanity was gone, completely undetectable. The galaxy realized something terrifying. The humans had not only returned, they had come back better. The Erebus fleet emerged from hyperspace like ghosts. For a moment, the space around Varela Prime went still. The great capital world of the Galactic Council floated peacefully, its rings shining with the lights of 10 billion lives. Then the alarms began. "Unidentified ships detected," shouted a voice from the Planetary Defense Command. "Hundreds, no, thousands, of them." Every scanner burned with static. The unknown fleet didn't match any known signature. Their engines were silent, their weapons invisible, yet their presence pressed against every mind that looked at them. Then the darkness parted. The human fleet appeared, sleek, cold, endless. At the center was Erebus, its hull glowing faintly with blue light. Commander Eric Hale stood on the bridge, eyes locked on the planet below. "Sir, Varela Defense Grid is online," said Lyridax. "They're powering up orbital cannons." Eric didn't blink. "Hold position," he said. The officers glanced at each other. "Sir, they'll open fire." "They won't," Eric replied calmly. "Not yet." On the surface of Varela, chaos broke out. The Council's military scrambled fighters, activating defense stations that hadn't been used in centuries. Generals shouted orders, civilians ran for cover, and in the middle of it all, Councillor Rethar watched the sky. Through the transparent dome of the chamber, he could see them, the humans. He remembered the stories from the old days, how humanity fought even when outnumbered, how they survived without help, and how they always came back stronger. Looking at those ships now, he understood. The stories were true. A voice echoed through the Council's comm system, calm and deep. "This is Commander Eric Hale of the Human Dominion. We come for dialogue. You exiled us to die. We did not die. We evolved. Let us speak." "Speak," hissed one of the alien generals. "You appear with a war fleet above our world and ask for peace?" Eric's voice came again. "If I wanted war, you wouldn't be hearing me." Silence. The Council hesitated. Their fleets surrounded the human ships, weapons ready. But something felt wrong. Their targeting systems didn't lock properly. Their scanners couldn't read human shields. Every attempt to analyze the ships failed. It was as if the fleet was made of shadow and light at the same time. Rethar leaned closer to the communication console. "Commander Hale," he said slowly, "what do you want?" Eric looked down at the planet, his expression unreadable. "A seat at the table. A voice in the council that once cast us out." "Impossible," snapped the Kryn delegate. "Humans are not welcome in the inner worlds." Eric's voice turned cold. "Then we will take what we deserve." In an instant, the stars flared. A single human ship moved forward, faster than light. It stopped near one of the orbital defense platforms, and then the impossible happened. The platform vanished. No explosion, no debris, just light and silence. On Varela's surface, panic spread. Every defense commander shouted over the comms, but their systems failed one by one. Every missile launched turned around and disarmed itself mid-flight. Every energy cannon overheated and shut down. Eric turned to his officers. "Demonstration complete," he said quietly. "Stand by for orders." Back in the council chamber, Rethar stood frozen. "What did you do?" Eric's voice was calm. "We showed you what exile taught us, that control is stronger than chaos. That survival is evolution. For the first time in centuries, the mighty Galactic Council had no power. They couldn't fight. They couldn't hide. The humans had outgrown them in every way. But Eric didn't order an attack. Instead, he said, "You once feared our violence. Now, you should fear our mercy." Then, without firing another shot, the human fleet disappeared into the void, vanishing just as suddenly as it had come. Hours later, when the systems on Varela finally came back online, the council members were still silent. No one spoke. The image of that single vanished defense platform stayed in every mind. "They could have destroyed us," whispered Rethar. "But they didn't." "Why?" asked another delegate. Rethar looked up at the stars. "Because they're not here for revenge. They're here to remind us, humanity always returns." Far away, in deep space, Erebus drifted among the stars. Inside, Eric Hale stood before a window, watching the fading light of Varela Prime. Lyra approached him quietly. "They're shaken, sir. You've made your point." Eric nodded. "Not yet. The real message comes next." He turned toward the fleet's communication hub. "Prepare transmission. All systems." "To who, sir?" "To everyone," he said. "The galaxy is about to hear the truth." As the fleet moved deeper into the dark, their ships shimmered and vanished again, like whispers fading into night. And somewhere, far across the stars, billions of beings waited, wondering what humanity would do next. The galaxy had seen their strength. Now it would learn their purpose. The transmission began without warning. Across thousands of worlds, lights dimmed, and every screen, from starship consoles to city billboards, turned black. Then a symbol appeared, a burning Earth surrounded by a ring of stars. The voice that followed was steady and clear. "This is Commander Eric Hale of the Human Dominion. For centuries, you believed us gone. You were wrong. All over the galaxy, people stopped what they were doing. Workers in mines, soldiers in orbit, merchants in crowded markets, everyone listened. The voice of humanity filled every world at once. We were cast out into the void," Eric said. "We built our homes in dead systems. We made life from ruin. While you fought over borders, we learned to rebuild worlds. While you hid behind laws, we learned to bend physics itself." Images appeared, giant cities floating in the clouds of gas giants, human ships mining energy from black holes, colonies built inside living asteroids. The audience could hardly believe what they saw. Eric continued, "We do not come for conquest. We come because something is coming for all of us." The last line silenced the galaxy. On Varela Prime, the council gathered again, fear written across every face. "He speaks of a threat," one asked. "What threat?" Rethar leaned forward. "Whatever it is, they think it's big enough to bring them back here." Meanwhile, aboard Erebus, Eric stood before a huge holographic projection, a storm of black energy spreading through the edge of the galaxy. "The rift expands faster each cycle," said Lyra Dax. "It devours everything. Matter, energy, even time." Eric nodded. "We found it 50 years ago. A wound in space itself. It destroyed 3 human colonies in one night. No weapon, no shield can stop it. So we warn them," Lyra said. "We tell the council." "They won't listen," Eric replied. "They never have." Still, he sent the message anyway. Back on Varela, scientists stared at the data that came with the human transmission. The readings were real. The rift existed. A black wave consuming the stars from the galactic rim, moving toward the inner systems. "This changes everything," whispered one of them. "If it keeps growing, it will reach us within 50 years. The council chamber filled with noise again, fear, confusion, denial. "They're lying," shouted one delegate. "A trick to scare us into submission." But Rethar didn't think so. He had seen the truth in Eric's eyes. "No," he said softly. "They're warning us. While the council argued, a small human envoy ship entered orbit around Varela. It was unarmed, a simple silver craft carrying only 2 people, Commander Eric Hale and Lyra Dax. Every defense system tracked them. Every soldier was on alert. But no one fired. When the shuttle landed, Eric stepped out slowly, wearing no armor, no weapon, only a black coat with the emblem of the burning earth. The air around him was silent. Inside the grand chamber, the council members waited. Some glared with hatred, others with fear. Eric walked to the center and stopped. "You banished us once," he said. "Now you must decide if that mistake will end you all." Ret Har stood. "Show us the proof." Eric raised his wrist device, and a hologram filled the room, a vast black storm swallowing stars, its edges twisting reality like glass. "This is the rift," he said. "It consumes everything. It doesn't think. It doesn't stop. We don't know who made it, or if it was made at all." The image shifted to a human fleet firing massive weapons into the void, only for the beams to vanish, absorbed by the darkness. The ships fled, some disappearing forever. "We tried to fight it," Eric said. "We failed. Alone, we cannot stop it. But together, maybe we can." The room was silent. For the first time in history, humans weren't the threat, they were the warning. A voice from the crowd broke the silence. "Why should we trust you?" Eric looked up, calm but tired. "You shouldn't. But you will, because when the rift reaches your worlds, there will be no one else left to fight it." Outside, through the chamber windows, the sky of Varela glowed faintly red. A storm of cosmic dust passed through the system, lighting the night like fire. In that quiet, Ret Har took a deep breath. "Then we stand together," he said at last. Some shouted in protest, others nodded slowly. But in that moment, the first fragile bridge between humanity and the rest of the galaxy was built. Eric turned to leave. "Prepare your fleets," he said. "The rift feeds on energy, it grows where war begins. If we fight each other, it wins." As he stepped back onto his shuttle, Lyra whispered, "Do you think they'll help us?" Eric looked at the stars. "They have to. If they don't, there won't be a galaxy left to rule." The shuttle rose into the sky, glowing silver against the darkness, heading back to Erebus. Behind it, the council world spun in silence, old enemies now bound by a threat older than all of them. In the endless black beyond the stars, the rift pulsed again, expanding further. Its edges shimmered like a heartbeat, alive, hungry, unstoppable. And deep within the human dominion, preparations began. The war for survival was no longer between species. It was between existence and the void. The alliance began with silence. For the first time in centuries, ships from a dozen alien empires gathered beside the human dominion's fleet. The stars near the galactic rim glowed dim and cold, marking the edge of known space, and just beyond that edge, the rift waited. It looked almost peaceful. A black storm stretching across the void, slowly turning, pulsing like a living heart. But everyone who looked at it for too long felt the same thing: fear. Commander Eric Hale stood on the bridge of the Erebus, his hands behind his back. Around him floated hundreds of ships, massive Saran cruisers, crystalline vessels of the Lathari, insectoid battle carriers of the Kryn, and the dark, sharp human warships. Enemies once divided by hatred, now side by side. Lyra Dax watched the holographic screen. "All fleets in position, sir. They're waiting for your signal." Eric nodded slowly. "Send the message." Moments later, his voice echoed across every ship. "This is Commander Hale. You have come here not as enemies, but as survivors. Remember that when fear takes hold, we face the void itself. No species, no empire, only extinction. Our goal is simple: survive together." There was no cheer, no applause, only quiet resolve. The fleets began their slow approach. The rift loomed larger and larger until it filled every screen. It wasn't just black, it was deeper than black, as if light itself refused to exist there. Strange shapes moved inside it, like shadows trying to escape. Then, without warning, the sensors screamed. "Energy surge detected," shouted one of the officers. "It's reacting to us." The rift twisted violently, sending out waves of dark energy. Whole systems flickered offline. Several alien ships were thrown backward, their shields collapsing. The crews screamed through the comms. Eric's voice cut through the chaos. "Hold formation. Activate counter fields." The human ships spread out, forming a protective arc. Beams of blue light linked them together, creating a barrier that absorbed the rift's energy. The alien commanders watched in shock. "They built this," one whispered. How is it possible?" Humanity's secret was finally revealed. "We call it the vortex shield," Lyra explained through the shared comms. "It bends energy like gravity, redirects destruction instead of resisting it." The Saran admiral stared in disbelief. "You developed this in exile?" Eric's calm reply came. "We had no choice." The fleets pushed forward again. Behind the shield, small scout ships entered the outer edge of the rift. Their lights disappeared instantly, swallowed by the darkness. For a long minute, there was nothing, only static. Then a voice came through, broken but alive. "This is Scout 4, reading structures inside, massive shapes, movement." The signal cut out. The screen showed a ripple of light deep within the rift. Something enormous moved there, bigger than any ship, any planet. It wasn't metal. It wasn't alive. It was something in between. Lyra's face went pale. "It's feeding, sir." Eric narrowed his eyes. "On what?" "The stars themselves." Everyone in the command bridge froze. On the holographic map, 2 nearby stars dimmed, their light fading like dying candles. "That's impossible," said one alien general. Eric shook his head. "No. That's why we're here." He turned to the fleet-wide channel. "All ships, prepare energy anchors. If the rift pulls us in, cut all power. It feeds on motion, not mass." The order confused many, but they obeyed. Engines shut down, lights dimmed, and for a few moments, the Great Alliance fleet floated silent. Thousands of ships drifting in the dark, like ghosts facing a monster. Then the rift moved again. A wave of black lightning surged forward, tearing through space. The outer ships were hit first, half of them gone in seconds. The rest shook violently. "Hold steady," Eric shouted. "We're almost through the first barrier." Lyra clung to her console. "The shield won't last long." Eric closed his eyes for a moment, then said softly, "Then we go where it can't follow." He reached toward the main controls and entered a sequence no one had ever seen before. The Erebus glowed bright blue. "Sir, what are you doing?" Lyra gasped. "Activating the fold core," he said. "It's time to see if the stories were true." The human ships began to shine, their hulls shifting like liquid metal. A deep hum filled the void as the fleet bent light around itself. And then, everything vanished. From the alien perspective, it was like watching ghosts dissolve. The entire human fleet disappeared into the rift. The alien ships hung helplessly in space, staring at the darkness that had swallowed their human allies. Rethar's voice came through the comm, shaken. "Did they sacrifice themselves?" No one answered. But inside the rift, the Erebus appeared again, floating in a storm of black and blue light. Systems flickered, alarms screamed, but the ship held. Through the window, Eric saw the impossible, an entire world inside the rift. A twisted planet made of broken ships, shattered cities, and something else, something alive. Lyra whispered, "Sir, what is this place?" Eric's voice was low. "The reason the galaxy will never be the same again." Outside, the strange world pulsed once, like a heartbeat. And somewhere deep inside that darkness, something pulsed back. The Erebus drifted inside the rift like a speck of light swallowed by a sea of darkness. Outside the windows, space twisted and bent. Shapes moved slowly, as if the void itself was alive. Some looked like broken ships, others like giant creatures made of light and shadow. None of them moved naturally, they drifted, half frozen in time. Commander Eric Hale stood at the front of the bridge, his face lit by the faint blue glow of the ship's monitors. "Status?" he asked. "Shields holding," Lyra Dax replied, her voice tense. "Gravity is unstable. Readings don't make sense. Sir, this place shouldn't exist." "It exists," Eric said quietly, "and we're inside it now." He looked out again. In the distance, the twisted planet they had seen before grew larger. It was made of fragments, metal, rock, even pieces of cities. Yet between the wreckage, there was something glowing, pulsing slowly, like veins of light through a living body. "That world," Lyra whispered. "It's calling to us." "Then we answer," Eric said. "Prepare a landing team." Within minutes, a small shuttle detached from Erebus and descended through the storm. Lightning of black energy flashed around it, but somehow never touched it. The rift seemed to avoid the shuttle, as if recognizing what it carried. The shuttle touched down on the surface. The ground was strange, metal and stone fused together. There was no sky, only endless darkness above, alive with slow-moving shapes. Eric and his team stepped out, weapons ready, helmets sealed. Their boots echoed on the hollow ground. "Sir," one of the soldiers said, "these structures, they look human." Eric knelt beside a half-buried wall. He brushed away dust and saw markings, English letters. Faded, ancient. The nameplate read, USS Horizon. Lyra gasped. "That's impossible." The Horizon was one of the first ships lost during the exile. Eric's eyes narrowed. Maybe it didn't just vanish. Maybe it was taken. As they moved deeper into the ruins, strange lights began to flicker ahead. They reached a massive chamber filled with glowing pillars. In the center, a figure stood, tall, humanoid, but translucent, made of pure light. The soldiers raised their weapons, but Eric lifted his hand. "Wait." The figure spoke, its voice echoing like wind through metal. "Human, you have returned." Lyra stepped back. "What are you?" "I am the Keeper," the being said. "I guard what remains of your kind, and what remains of this galaxy." Eric frowned. "You know who we are?" The Keeper's light dimmed slightly. "You were the first to reach the edge, long ago. When the Council cast you out, you found the gate, the wound in the stars. You opened it, and it answered." Eric's heartbeat quickened. "The rift. We created it." "In part," the Keeper said. "Your search for power awakened something older than creation itself. It has no name, no purpose. It simply consumes." The team went silent. Lyra's voice trembled. "So all of this, everything, it's our fault?" The Keeper turned toward her, the light around it shifting gently. "Not fault. Curiosity. The same fire that built your species also burns without end. You reached for the unknown, and the unknown reached back." Eric stared at the swirling energy that ran through the walls. "Can it be stopped?" The Keeper hesitated. "Only by closing the wound. But to close it, something must stay inside, to hold it shut forever." Everyone went quiet. Lyra shook her head. "You mean, someone has to stay here?" "Yes," the Keeper said softly. "Someone who carries the same fire that opened it." Eric looked down at his gloved hands. The silence stretched. "Finally," he said, "humanity began this. We'll finish it." Before anyone could respond, the ground shook violently. The walls split apart as the rift roared, brighter than ever. Energy surged upward, tearing the air itself. "Sir, we have to go," Lyra shouted. Eric's voice stayed calm. "Get the team to the shuttle." "And you?" "I'll talk to the Keeper." Lyra hesitated, but one look from him told her not to argue. She ran back with the others as Eric faced the glowing being. "If I stay," he said, "will it close?" The Keeper's light flickered sadly. "Yes." But you will not return. Eric smiled faintly. Exile seems to be humanity's destiny. He placed his hand on the central pillar. The energy flared around him, bright and wild. Outside, Erebus detected a massive surge from the planet's core. Lyra's voice came through the comms, breaking with emotion. Commander! Eric, answer me. His last message was quiet, almost a whisper. Tell them, we found the truth. Tell them to live. The planet erupted in light. The rift screamed, and then, for the first time in centuries, it began to close. The black storm folded inward, shrinking, fading, until only stars remained. The Erebus floated in silence, surrounded by the surviving fleet. No sign of the world. No sign of Eric. Lyra stared at the empty space where the rift once was. He did it, she said softly. He saved us all. Rethar's voice came over the shared channel, quiet and respectful. The one they cast out has become the one who saved the galaxy. And across every world, from the Council's cities to the farthest colonies, a single message spread. Humanity did not return to conquer. They returned to protect. Stars burned quietly across the endless black. The rift was gone. The silence it left behind felt heavy, ancient, and peaceful. The Erebus floated among the scattered remains of ships, human and alien alike, survivors of a war that had almost ended everything. The crew watched the empty space where the storm once raged. No one spoke. Commander Eric Hale was gone. Lyra Dax stood at the viewing window, her reflection faint against the stars. Her voice was soft. He closed it. He really did. Rethar stepped beside her, his 4 eyes glimmering. Among my people, there is a saying, the one who walks into the dark becomes the light for others. Your commander proved it true. Lyra nodded slowly. He wasn't just our commander. He was humanity's voice. Across the galaxy, the message spread like fire. From the icy moons of the Dran to the shining towers of the Council worlds, everyone heard the same words: the rift has closed. Humanity saved us. For the first time in thousands of years, the galaxy was united in silence and gratitude. Ships that once feared human fleets now opened channels of peace. Worlds that had banned human presence now sent envoys to Earth's reborn colonies. The title human no longer meant exile or danger. It meant hope. Months passed. Then years. Humanity rebuilt faster than anyone expected. The United Terran Alliance expanded beyond old borders, not to conquer, but to connect. They sent ships filled not with weapons, but engineers, healers, and teachers. They brought technology that could heal planets scarred by war. And everywhere they went, they carried one name: Eric Hale. Statues were raised in his memory, one on Earth, looking toward the stars, another on Rethar's homeworld, holding a light in both hands, and one deep in orbit around the rift's remains, now a calm field of drifting starlight. It became a place of peace. No one fought there. No ships carried weapons. They called it the Gate of Hale. Lyra Dax became the first human to lead the new Galactic Council. She stood in the great chamber surrounded by hundreds of alien leaders. Her voice was steady, filled with quiet strength. For too long, we let fear decide our future, she said. But one man walked into the dark and showed us the light. Humanity was banished once, but instead of hate, we found purpose. We are not here to rule, we are here to guide. The chamber filled with quiet applause. Even Rethar bowed his head respectfully. Later, Lyra walked alone through the Council's garden, a floating structure of glass and greenery above the stars. She looked up, and for a moment, thought she saw something in the distance. A faint, blue shimmer. Like a silhouette made of light, watching. Eric! She whispered. The light flickered once, then faded. But she smiled. Somehow, she knew. He was still there. In time, children across worlds learned the story. Teachers told them of the time when the galaxy turned against humanity, and how humanity saved it. They called it the Age of Return. And yet, far away, in the quiet part of space where the rift once was, something stirred. Not a threat, just energy, calm, balanced. The wound was healing. At its heart, a single spark glowed brighter than all the stars. A spark shaped like a man standing tall, eyes fixed on infinity. His voice echoed faintly, carried by the silent waves of space. "Watch the stars," he whispered. "They will always remember." Back on Earth, under a sky filled with constellations that once were unreachable, a small child stood on a hill. She looked up at the night sky and whispered, "Thank you, Commander." The wind carried her words beyond the clouds, through the endless dark, to where heroes rest. And among the stars, a new light shone, steady, eternal, and human. Humanity had risen. Not as conquerors, not as survivors, but as guardians of the galaxy.